Hello everyone, my name is Halvey, and in this video we're going to take a look at all the differences between the Japanese and English trailers of Fire Emblem Engage. So really the trailers are basically the same for the first half, and all the cinematics that I've noticed are all the same. It's really just like gameplay, the gameplay that's shown off that there's some differences. First off is this scene right here where we see Vander attacking a corrupted with an axe. For one frame right here in the Japanese trailer, we can see that Vander there's two skills in effect at the top left. One of them is Vander's own skill. He somehow for some reason his skill is active on himself when he's standing next to Alear here, and we see that Alear's skill, it's like divinely inspiring or something like that, is active on Vander as well. So like this isn't really anything new that we've seen from Alear's skill, but from Vander's skill this could be something that is affecting himself when he's standing next to an ally, it looks like. So he seems to be pretty strong, I would say early on, that he can, his own skill somehow probably buffs him, and then he can also get effects from other allies, but it's only on one frame, so it's very easy to miss. This right here, when Etsy is shooting down this flyer, this is the second difference here. Notice, first we'll just talk about this enemy range basically, which I would assume be an enemy range, but that doesn't make sense, as it seems like this flyer can travel, we go from like here the whole way out to like here, and this being its furthest attack range, that's 6 spaces. However, clearly it's not 6 spaces from on this side here. This is only like 3 spaces here, even though I'm pretty sure this is still part of the map that you'd be able to traverse. Same thing up here, it just this is only like 3 or 4 spaces here, and it just kind of ends, and we can't even attack out on this space here. So my only guess is that flyers might have been nerfed as far as their movement goes. I mean, they obviously seem to have movement as a whole has been nerfed in this game. We see less movement. Flyers seem to have 6 moves, but is there also something where they have like terrain penalties, whereas in other Fire Emblem games they don't? They just can traverse any terrain with no penalties, but they don't get any terrain bonuses. Because even like down here, from where it's at down to here would be 6 move, but I'm not sure why then this square here would be highlighted as an attack range, unless it does have a ranged weapon. But we see this flyer only has an iron sword, or at least in the animation then it just is wielding an iron sword. So I don't really know what to make of this right now, other than that this area is just off limits for the map itself, and as well as this area up here. And just real quick to show, this is the English trailer, we can see that attack range isn't here, and also units are in different positions. We saw Celine and Celica here in the Japanese trailer, which I'm going to go over next here, as well as there was a mage here from an enemy mage. So yeah, like I said, different enemy and unit and player unit like positions here. But take a look at Celine and Celica here. This is the first and like only instance we see where this gauge around Celica is not full. It seems to be like empty in this moment right here. Anywhere else in the trailer and any footage, we never see it blacked out, like kind of empty like this. See, other times in the trailer it's kind of looks like it's full. The gauge is filled up, which leads me to believe that this has to do with the engage mechanic. When that gauge is full, you can go ahead and engage. So it looks like they'll be full right off the start of the chapter. And as we see with what engage is and the special moves you can perform in that form, that's really powerful. However, this empty gauge here leads me to believe that maybe an explanation for these blue glowing tiles on the map might be a way of recharging this gauge. Perhaps if you end your turn in this tile, you will automatically have a full gauge afterwards in the next turn, and you just engage then again. Then this next scene in the trailer is from attacking this illusion soldier. The only difference here is her just attack animation. In the Japanese trailer here we see she punches or like kind of elbows the guy, and then follows up with another punch. Going back to the English trailer, she does a little different. She does have the start leads with the punch, but then her second attack is a kick. So, I mean, not really groundbreaking or anything really. It's just cool to see that as far as From's animations will go, she will have a mixed of, you know, variety of different attacks that she'll do. She'll punch, she'll kick, she'll do a mix of both, which is cool to see. The next different scene is this Chloe's fight. In the English trailer, she had some ridiculous numbers of doing 42 damage, doubling, and she gets a crit on top of things, even though she only has 24 HP, and she had like 21 crit. She seemed to be it definitely seemed like it was like hacked, which it probably was, because in the Japanese trailer we can see her having much normal looking numbers, 13, 13, 7 crits, 24 HP, but although she is injured though, which looks to be, she probably had a max of 26. But the biggest thing is the difference in the enemy's stats as well. In English, he had triple zeros, which is something you don't see a lot or very often in Fire Emblem games. Here we can see it's completely different. He has some kind of 2 80% and 0% in green there, and then he has another attack 14 with a 15% hit rate and 0 crit. And I made notice of green weapon he has, which is a hammer. So now we see here green, his icon, his hammer is green, and he has an attack here highlighted in green that did 2 damage. We can see that it most likely hit Chloe, because we can see miss here. So obviously this guy attacked Chloe first, so she got hit by the 2 damage hit. She got hit by that, took 2 damage, and then we can see his second attack then would have been a 14 with a 15% hit rate that obviously missed. We can see the miss on the screen. So this enemy here had 2 consecutive attacks, which has something to do with his green hammer. So I'm just looking at some possibilities here, and it seems like enemies will once again kind of have special or be able to use the combat mechanics that the player can use. Like in 3 Houses, enemies could use gambits. They had battalions, they could use gambits. So we're kind of seeing the same thing here, where this guy with the hammer is obviously doing some kind of special move or something to that effect. But then Chloe ends this round of combat by just getting a crit anyway. But the key thing here is this, the green, the hammer being green. Usually that would indicate, and from the English trailer you can assume that would indicate the hammer just is a droppable weapon, like we've seen in previous Fire Emblem games. Something highlighted in green just drops and you get that item when you defeat the enemy. But what I'm thinking is that what we're seeing here is that enemies are using some type of special move, like what we see the player characters can use as when they engage here. When Marth and Alear engage here, Alear gets access to Marth's weapons, one of them being Mercurius in this scene. And notice how when we're using an emblem's weapon, it's in blue. So it's like they're kind of color coding different types of attacks or weapons. So I'm just wondering if perhaps this random enemy maybe has an emblem ring or something like that. The next difference we see is in this scene right here. If you look to the left with Celine and Celica, they are engaged in this scene, and in the English trailer they were not engaged, as we see here, although their gauge looks to be like full. However, back to the Japanese trailer, notice that her Celica has a 1 beside her. I think this is the only other time we see a 1 next to the emblem's character's face. Other times we see 3, we see 2, and then now we see 1, which strengthens the thought that there's like a turn limit associated with this engaged form. It'll count once you engage, it'll start at 3, and you have basically 3 turns in this engaged form, and then it'll run out. The gauge will be empty, and what I think is what you'll have to, if you want to engage again, you'll have to end your turn in one of those blue circles that we see here. The next change is in this screen right here. We see Alfred here has a build of 7. It's a base of 6 plus the 1 he gets from Sigurd, making it 7. However, in the English English trailer, he has 8 here, indicating a base of 7 plus the 1 he gets from Sigurd, making it 8. I think that this is like proof that this is the build stat, as we see him getting +1 in build here isn't giving him a boost to avoid. However, in the Japanese trailer, him getting a boost to his build seems to also increase his avoid. So I think we can assume that his Iron Lance probably has a weight stat, or all weapons have a weight stat. The Iron Lance weight is most likely 7 because that boost to build is giving him basically a point in speed since he's not getting weighed down anymore like in previous Fire Emblem games, thus giving him an extra point of avoid. Or actually, I think he's getting 2 points of avoid because I think the calculation for avoid is going to be twice your speed plus half of your luck, because we can see he has 6, because usually avoid is calculated using speed and luck in most Fire Emblem games. So we can see if we take 6 times 2 we'll get 12, and we take like 8 and divided by 2 we got 4, so we take 12 plus 4 we get 16. Likewise, we can do the same thing on the English trailer. Basically, even though he's getting a extra point of build, he already had 7 anyway, so he's not getting any boost to avoid because he wasn't getting weighed down even before the boost to a build. So I mean, we can see 6 speed, 8 luck would be 16 avoid. The next change is then this scene there's actually quite a bit of differences here. For one, nobody in the English version of this scene, some characters were grayed out. In this scene they're not, however. This guy right here, who even when he was grayed out in the English trailer, I assumed him to be still that red-haired guy from the box art and other places in the trailer, but I think we're actually seeing him on the map in gameplay here, and he's associated with Roy. We also see a cavalier here with blonde hair. I am thinking that this is this character here, which I think her name is Citrine Prince Alchrist Retainer. So I think that was her, that blonde cavalier, and Prince Alchrist is the name of the red-haired guy from the box art, and they are from some kind of country referred to, its people are referred to as Fire Knees, something like that. And then next in this scene is these circle slashes with that appear on these sword units here. These did not appear in the English trailer, which kind of left me confused because I was expecting them to, because we also saw that earlier on, and if you watched my other analysis video I made mention of these crosses, these circles with crosses. This seems to have to do with the weapon triangle or the break mechanic, because we see Alfred has a weapon triangle advantage, and into combat with these guys he inflicts break. Then another difference is in this scene right here, Alfred and Sigurd attacking this guy with the sword. Here towards the end, watch how Sigurd just kind of disappears. He does not do that in the English trailer. Back to the English trailer, here we can see that Sigurd just kind of sticks around, because it kind of looks like it's still the same amount of time has passed since they dealt the attack. Only in the English trailer here, everything's the same except for Sigurd just kind of sticks around. So this kind of leads into, and strengthens another idea I had, where enemies could have emblem rings themselves, because I mentioned that back with Chloe's fight, how that enemy could have had an emblem ring that was associated with like the green color, which could be just for enemies only, like because of how Sigurd just kind of disappears here. But obviously this round of combat, it's not over, I wouldn't say. I mean, it's really hard to tell, because if the break mechanic does like disarm or cancel this guy's counterattack, then the combat would be over and Sigurd would have a reason to just disappear, I guess. But in the English trailer, he sticks around, and it seems like this guy is getting back up and going to counterattack with his 1-and-1, his double attack. So it wouldn't be too far out to say that in like Chloe's fight here, we can see this is the towards the end of this round of combat. We can definitely say that the guy with the hammer attacked her first, as indicated by this miss. So it's clear that we can say like the guy does have like an emblem ring. It's just that whoever that emblem ring was representing, or the character in that emblem ring, just kind of disappeared like what Sigurd did in the other battle. So it's just something to consider, because he obviously is doing some kind of special attack, and so far we have special attacks only associated with the player units and the emblem rings. Next thing is in this scene with this like farm area, we see two more like sparkles area like spaces compared to the English trailer. So I mean, not much really there too. These sparkles could be really anything, probably not that important. This scene seems to be the same, but something I want to mention quick is that when we see this scene play out, Alear here does 21, then 21, and that 10 just seems to be not at play. But what if, when we read this battle forecast here, what if it starts here from the inside and works its way out? Because like we saw with Chloe's battle, we started from the inside on the enemy side with that 2, which clearly went first, and then the 14, which missed. So I'm thinking the same thing is happening here, only for, you know, usually we would read left to right. However, I'm thinking maybe we're supposed to read this as 21, 21, and then finally 10, because otherwise I have no explanation for where this 10 is supposed to be coming into play. So, I mean, it wouldn't be too far out there to say we're reading this from inside out on both sides. Next is this scene with Alfred using overdrive. There's not really an important difference here, but there's just a little one. He's just doing less damage on this first guy, and I think the second guy as well, but I think the trailer cuts it out before we can see what the total damage done was here. The next scene then is with Celica and Celine being engaged. This scene's a little different. The way she is moving the cursor is different than opposed to the English version. In the English version, it like hovered over this guy for a brief second, and we can like see his inventory and stuff like that, as well as see this area of effect, you know, attacking. It hovered over here, and we can see it is going to hit all 3 of these enemies here. Here, when it's over here, we can see that it's going to hit this guy and leave him at like 1 HP probably, and hit this guy and one-shot this guy. Another difference here is that in the English trailer, it looked like Celine's warp Ragnarok thing here was limited in its range, but here we can see she has a space here that she can go to that was not in the English version. And if we go a little further, we can definitely see that there's an enemy there. So I'm wondering what exactly the range of her, you know, special move here is. Another thing is we see this circle with the cross on it here again, but we don't see it on this guy, even though, I mean, she's equipped with a sword, but she's not going to attack with a sword, we see, but it's still maybe showing that we have the weapon triangle against this guy, and we'll probably, if we would attack him with a sword, we would inflict break, but we wouldn't do it to this guy. We can also see this guy over here has the circle, but strangely enough is not on this guy. I think this strengthens the idea I had in my other video where I said that there might be some kind of like defensive stance, and you have to have a weapon triangle advantage to break them out of that defensive stance. But I mean, there's just not enough much to go on to confirm that or anything, whereas this guy might not be in his defensive stance. Also, slight difference in this guy's HP. I mean, not much of it, not really a big deal, but in the English trailer we would see that this guy would be probably left with like 1 HP or so. Here we can see we're gonna finish him off, indicating that like this isn't like a gambit attack like in Three Houses, where people that were affected by the area of effect, other than like the main person, couldn't be killed by gambits. They would just be left with 1 HP. Here we can see this guy is clearly going to be killed from this attack. So that is it for the trailer, but then we are getting like more and more additional info from the Japanese Twitter account. And in this scene here, we can see Alear has in effect Vander's skill. So Vander's skill seems to can affect himself and others from an adjacent space. We can also see that terrain bonuses are in this game. We're getting 30 avoid from a bush here, which is pretty high, but it's not really anything crazy. Then we get one more scene here in a completely different chapter. We can see once again that Vander is moving here, and he has his own skill and Alear's skill activated here because of standing next to each other. It doesn't seem like From or this guy have any kind of personal skills that are similar to these, but in this scene we get a better look at this circle with the cross, as we can see it kind of just flashes when Vander's moving here, and then we go from like the diamond shape that we're used to then it goes the circle goes over top of it. And we can see this for pretty much all the Lance users in this chapter here. We have this guy here and this guy here, and then we have also another Pegasus Knight up here and one more right here. So it's not too far out there to say that these guys are all in like a defensive stance, but it could just be there is no defensive stance, and anytime you have a weapon triangle advantage, you can inflict break. Because we can see then here, this is the first time we actually see the battle forecast in this way, where we're inflicting break, and it's already a forecast here that we're going to inflict break. So the biggest question is, what does break even do, and what circumstances do you have to meet to inflict the break? It seems like weapon triangle advantage is at least one circumstance, but like as we saw in that one battle, specifically this one back here, Alir here is at a weapon triangle disadvantage, but the enemy here is not inflicting break on his counterattack. So it seems to be that break can only be inflicted by the one who initiates combat, but there is no penalty to go into a weapon triangle disadvantage when you initiate combat. So that's interesting there, because if you do the calculations, the weapon triangle is not affecting might, damage, or hit and avoid. So going back to this then, like it doesn't seem like break is going to be like some kind of disarm mechanic, because we can see that it's forecasting we're going to get counterattacked here. Even though, yeah, there's a chance that Vander will miss and therefore not inflict break at all. But if you look at the forecast of the HP as well, I mean, it's forecasting we're going to get counterattack. But unfortunately, Vander just crits anyway, and we don't see the real outcome of what break would have done. Even if it still gets inflicted, even if it kills the guy. And one more thing here at the end, we got finally what we saw in the other scene with Alir as well, that when he defeats the enemy, he gets 16 experience and he needs 100 total to get a level up, which is standard aside from like 3 houses. We also see SP. He has 300 SP. We can assume this is the prologue. He's level 1 with 0 experience, so this is obviously the prologue. So, and he already has 300 SP. We only ever see him elsewhere too with 300 SP. If SP was some kind of points that you use to spend on earning skills or whatnot, it wouldn't make sense for it just cap at 300 and even start out at 300. So I would assume SP has something to do with with maybe special moves, where you start out with your full SP at the start of every map, and that's how much SP you have to spend on special moves throughout the map. And possibly if you are not at full SP, when you defeat an enemy, you get some SP back, which is why it would be seen on this experience screen here. And then going back to Vander, we can see he has 500 SP, which is why I think that SP is something that is not spent on skills, but rather spent on combat arts or special moves throughout a map. Because Vander here is obviously a promoted unit, he's a paladin, so it would make sense when you promote, you get more SP, or a higher SP cap. And also the experience he gets 2 experience, which is pretty standard for pre-promoted enemies this early on. But that is everything that I noticed between the 2 different trailers. What are your thoughts on these differences? And if you liked the video, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.